Ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation, welcome back to the FightersRep podcast. And today, obviously, it's the Monday after. So, we got to do the FightersRep 20 recap. Here with my man, Ignorant Behavior. Gary, man, how you doing today, bro?
Doing good, baby.
I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm good, man. I had a long weekend of fights. You know how fight week is for me in the weekend. And I get tired, I get exhausted, but at the end, it's all worth it, man, because it's so much fun to put together. It's so much fun to watch the work that you put together kind of manifest into the results that you get. And it was an incredible card, Gary. Again, we got to get you. Well, actually, the next one is probably going to be in Miami. So
okay.
You'll be there. Hopefully you'll be there. But the one after that, which will likely be back in LA again. Maybe we'll fly you out to that one with me as well. But man, an incredible night of fights. I'm not sure if you knew this, Gary. We had Joe Grant. We flew him out from Miami to take on Cameron Spencer in the main event. We had Claycomb versus Milshawn, which you helped me interview for the co-main event. We had 5 titles on the line and just a fantastic event. And I want to thank everyone first and foremost, before I start this and we get into each and every fight. I want to thank everybody for coming out, everybody for preparing, everybody, that was involved, the coaches and the fighters especially, and all the fans of FightersRep. Thank you guys so much for making this happen. Gary, I also wanted to say 17 fights, all of them went through. Almost every single person was exactly on weight. There were only a couple of guys that missed weight. Isaac Delapaz was one of them, but his opponent, Isaac McCary, big shout out to him, decided to still take the fight as long as Delapaz didn't go beyond 140 pounds during the day of the fight. So, we kept him low to try to make it as fair as possible for McCary, who made weight, came out all the way from Las Vegas to fight and made weight and was a professional. And then Ruben Morrow missed weight as well against a very talented James Sandal, but he was able to keep running during the weigh-ins and get himself down, down within 0.4 pounds. So he was only like 0.4 pounds away. So shout out to him and his efforts. But again, I appreciate the professionalism of everybody that showed up on weight, ready to fight. And it was a fantastic night, Gary. So let's start off with number one. I know you watched some of these fights. The ones that you didn't watch, I guess I'll just be waiting for you to watch at some point. But I'll go over myself. The first fight, Chase Lavelle out of CMMA, taking on Michael CIS at 185 pounds. Chase is a guy with a couple MMA fights. CIS had one kickboxing fight before, so these guys were pretty young in their development still. CIS out of Evolution, a great striking gym with Joe Davidson at the helm. And, of course, CMMA is Chad George's gym, one of the best MMA gyms in the world. Gary, this fight was a banger. I always like to start the night off with a crazy fight. For some reason, this fight had crazy written all over it. You had 2 young guys, hungry guys, over 6 feet tall, cutting down to 185 pounds. So, on the night, they were probably close to the 200. And I thought big power would be displayed here, and that's what we had. Tell me your thoughts on this fight.
Those are some big guys. I thought Chase was the smaller of the 2, but I felt like he at the beginning, it seemed like he was the stronger of the 2 when they got into any type of clinch or anything, or you see them just the way the fight was going. I thought like maybe in like the first round, maybe the first round and a half, he looked strong, even though he looked a little bit smaller. He looked a little bit smaller, and I just thought that he pretty much was, very aggressive, and he was landing the bigger shots through the whole time. He kept landing that overhand right. He kept landing the right. Well, not an overhand. Actually, it was a cross. I think it was straight right.
Yeah, down the middle.
Yeah, he kept landing it, and I was just saying, is he gonna block that shot anytime, or dodge it or something? And that ended up being the shot that put him down twice. He got hit when he got knocked out. He got hit by the hit by the straight right twice in a row, and it was like the first time stunned him. The second one sent him into another world. But
yeah, and it was a big. I mean, it was heavy right after heavy right, and nearly knocked him out of the ring. I mean, that was pretty scary, if I'm being honest.
I mean, I do feel though, like how I some of the announcers were saying, like I would have gave him a standing 8, see if he could continue. I mean, I guess it's an amateur fight, so you want to protect him and everything. You know, it's not a pro fight, but I mean, I did feel like he was trying to not fall, and you know, it seemed like he might have been able to get up after the standing 8, and I don't know, maybe he gets knocked out again. So who knows?
True. You never know. Yeah, you never know. But I guess they erred on the side of caution, and they stopped the fight. But yeah, I mean, good performance by Chase, man. Those were big right hands landing over and over again, and I think Ciana is going to have to go back to the lab, figure out how to close that hole, which he's only had one fight before Saturday, and Chase has only had 2. So they still got their careers in front of them, and it's promising. I mean, when you're that big, it's promising because there's just not that many 185-pound dudes that big. You know what I mean? So I look forward to having them both back. But shout out to Chase, great performance. I thought those are some heavy right hands. And I wanted to say his brother Stone Lavelle is also a fighter, a very good one at that. And he was telling me that his brother Stone was telling him, throw that right hand. It's he's open for it. He's open for it. So
he was open all night.
Yeah, so he had some good coaching there on his side. Second fight was another one I was anticipating a lot because it was Charles Lewis versus MJL Gay, and we'd had Chaz, in the Lions Den before. He came up short against Dylan Ludwig, but he put up a hell of a fight. This time he was taking on a guy making his striking, I believe it was his striking debut in the Lions Den, at least for kickboxing, a guy with more of a Muay Thai style, MJL Gay. I was excited about this fight because, Chaz is very excited to fight, and MJL was really excited to fight Gary. I mean, this guy was, his team was hitting me up. They were down for coverage. They came to the open workout. Like, this is somebody who's really excited about putting himself out there. And so I felt like, well, if he's that way and his coach is that serious, they must be really serious about the sport.
Yeah.
And then they came out and fought, and it was a really exciting fight. And MJL, I want to say at some point in the middle of the first round, second round, really started to separate himself in this fight with good, hard kicks and just a very strong 1-2. But those kicks, man, I mean, he was kicking. He was
vicious with everything he threw. Yeah, he was vicious with everything. I mean, from watching the fight, I'm like, boy, this dude coming out with bad intentions and it didn't stop. It didn't stop. The whole fight, he wasn't throwing anything light, anything like if it was a kick, it was hard. It was knocking Chaz off his feet sometimes. Right. And and then with the punching, he was just, I felt Chaz came out, he was fast, and he was fast and had skills. I just didn't think that he had anything that was keeping Gay off of him. Yeah. Like he didn't have anything that could stop him from coming like a machine at him. And he was coming.
For me, Chaz seemed to have success when he was letting his hands go, but for some reason he was timid. Maybe whatever was coming back had a lot of power on it or something. I don't know what it was. I felt like he was doing well when he was letting his hands go, but he just didn't do it enough, I think.
Well, what they say is when you start letting your hands go, you're letting other things come back at you too now. Right. You gotta take that risk. And sometimes if you feel the power of the dude, you like, oh, he's hitting. He got power. It may make you kind of, okay, hold on. It seemed like he was trying to, keep him up off him. Like, hold on, let me get my distance. Let me back up a little bit. Oh, he's pressuring me a lot. Like he came with a lot of pressure and a lot of power and a lot of aggression, like to the point where they're like, he may get deducted at some point. He's like, overly, did somebody piss this guy off when he was at home?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, this guy's going to get a point taken away because he was like, I think he like dropped him and tried to attack him on the floor at one point. So I was like, whoa, But I don't think he had any like bad intent. I just think, I just think he was so aggressive and excited to fight that it kind of took over for him. He was such a polite and respectful and honorable kid, as is Chaz Lewis, that, you know, I was really happy with this fight. I was really happy with his performance. And shout out to John Gaglio from Bangkok Style Muay Thai. First time I get to work with him. And of course, shout out to Chris Manzo, owner of Engage Combat Training, which is Charles Lewis's gym.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I was gonna say it was a dope punch off the ropes too, with a counter. When he countered with the hook and dropped them, that was a dope connection when he bounced off it. So I like that.
We've seen that, and we've seen that we've seen people get knocked out by that punch in the Lions Den.
Yeah,
so very, very good. I look forward to having both guys back on the LA show, which should be March 2nd, and the Miami one should be around February 17th, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we had what I thought, Gary, was one of the fights of the night, brother. This was Ruben Morrow out of Blackbeard Kickboxing taking on James Sandoval out of Los Angeles Muay Thai. I knew this was going to be a dog fight because Ruben Morrow is a freaking dog. And even though I've never, ever worked with James Sandoval before, he's out of LA Muay Thai, and they don't do anything other than quality, man. I mean, crew David Huerta out there, one of the best in the game. Coach Sarate, one of the best in the game. One of the founders of Muay Thai in Southern California, taking on, you know, Blackbeard Kickboxing's Jason Caldwell, one of my favorite coaches as well. So I knew this was going to be crazy. And this was crazy, Gary. These guys were like, we were sitting there ringside like, I was sitting there like, whoa, man. These guys were just going at it. Ruben Morrow got dropped in the second round. I want to say it looked like more of a slip to me. I believe it was the second round. It looked like more of a slip to me, but I wasn't sure. But what I do know is it was a really close fight. I thought, you know, Sandoval did get the decision. I thought it was a good decision. But what a great close fight. I really look forward to seeing both of these guys. They're in the 135-pound division, which is Gator Granado's division. I can see both of these guys continuing to improve and maybe one day challenge for a title. Tell me what your thoughts are on this one, if you have any.
I thought Sandoval won. I thought he pretty much won every round. The third one being the closest. I thought the third one was the closest when Morrow started kind of, you know, Ruben started kind of getting him into the fight that he wanted him to end the whole time. Like the first two rounds, he couldn't get him into, because Ruben's best chance when he got inside and got him to start rolling.
It was very kickboxing, boxing versus Muay Thai is how it looked to me. Like, Sandoval was more of a kicker, but could also punch. And Morrow was more of a puncher, but could also kick. And so it was exciting, you know?
Yeah. He wanted to throw hands, whereas Sandoval, I felt, wanted to keep his distance. He used that push kick beautifully to keep him off. And I think Ruben kind of started getting frustrated with it. Like, because he was getting kicked if you're getting kicked in the stomach and then push kick in the stomach, kicked in the stomach, kicked in the legs, every time you get close and you can't really close the distance and get into the brawl like you really want to with the guy, start getting frustrated. Like I said, in the third round, I felt like he finally started to get some of that, and I thought the third round, if any round he won, would be the third one. But I thought that was a close round, and that's the type of round you were saying when you were like, oh man, these guys are going. In the third round, they start going, which I thought Sandoval, he didn't need to do that. He was winning the fight. He could have coasted in the third, and I felt like he could have won. But he wanted the knockout, I guess, and he almost got himself hurt with a shot. I'm trying to think, what was it? Is a spinning fist or what was it? I forgot.
They were hurting each other in there, man. I was, you know, I think sometimes maybe you don't catch something on video as well as you do when you're in person. But I was sitting there ringside and I saw them hurt each other a couple times, and I was like, damn, these dudes are trying to beat the hell out of each other, man. These dudes are no joke right here. And it was very exciting, man. Shout out to both guys. I look forward to, you know, hopefully having them back in March, man. Maybe even February in Florida. You know what I mean, Gary? Maybe we fly one out like we did with Joe Grant on this card. Next up came, you know, our first female fight we've had in a very long time, which I was very, very excited about. Alexandra Hamilton, also from Blackbeard Kickboxing, taking on Rebecca Montes out of Rounders MMA. This was a very, very good fight, too. I felt like Montes was a little bit more technical, but Hamilton was very aggressive, a lot of movement, and it was a close fight. At the end of the day, the judges gave it to Montes, but it was a split decision. It was a split decision, Gary, and just a very exciting female fight. I hope to have more female fights, man. They both looked good. They both looked hungry. They're still, early in the game. Hamilton had a little bit less experience, so there's no shame in losing. And Montes looked technical.
I thought that early on Montes, like you said, was very technical. She was she moved very good in and out. She was either in or she was out. She was in that middle range where you're not doing nothing but you still can get hit. She at the beginning in the first rounds and even the second round, I thought she boxed really well. Now I do think she started to slow down probably like mid second round. She started to slow down the movement a little bit. She wasn't as fast as she was coming out the gate in the first round, and I thought that gave Hamilton a chance to close the gap a little bit. I thought that one judge that had it 30-27, I didn't agree with that at all. Like I didn't agree with that at all. I thought the fight got much closer in the second round, and then even in the third round, I thought Hamilton might have won that third round. Actually, I think she won the third round. So I thought she won the third round. I thought the middle round, the second round was a toss up because I thought Montes started slowing down, and Hamilton she had the energy to keep going the whole fight. And I felt like she had more energy throughout the whole fight where she was able to on the back end kind of close it down. Even though I agree, like she was mostly just trying to box. She didn't really. I mean, that's probably something she's gonna have to work on. Is using some more of her kicks because Montes was using kicks, punches, using the whole repertoire, and it's like you could tell more so looking at Hamilton. She more as a boxer. She looked more like a boxer in there, not a kickboxer or Muay Thai fighter or karate fighter or something like that. She looked like she was trained mostly boxing and worked on that a lot. And even when I seen her throw a kick, it wasn't like a vicious kick. It wasn't like a kick with ill intent on it. It was just to throw it out there. It seemed like to me. Yeah. But her energy level is what helped her a lot in this fight.
She kept coming. She was excited to watch. And again, I look forward to having them both. Shout out to Coach Jason Caldwell. He says, thanks for having us, George. Of course, Blackbeard Kickboxing. You guys are a staple of Fighters Rep. So you're always, hopefully going to be with us. And Coach Chandlerith Pot, who says, couldn't wait for the recap. Shout out to Coach Pot. We're going to talk about his fighters fight later on this podcast. And Gary, it's our first champ together, David Marquez. Chandlerith Pot's one of his coaches. So I'm excited to talk about that fight in a little bit. Up next, we had Michael Mook Mitchell out of, street beefs to the Lion's Den. He's back after a year out of the Lion's Den, recovering from an injury. And he was taking on a very dangerous Christian O'Brien, who's got a big old right hand that, the entire community knows a lot about. Of course, O'Brien, also a talented fighter in his own right, but also a guy who hadn't been in the Lion's Den for a while. Both of these guys, excuse me, haven't been as active as I wanted them to be, whether it's due to injury or something else, but two very talented kids. They got in there, and it was a good scrap. But, man, I feel like Mook really separated himself in this fight. Landed a big left hand off of the ropes, Gary. Another one off the ropes.
That's the one I mixed up. I mixed it up with earlier.
And I want to say that was in the first round. And, my goodness, O'Brien looked really, really badly hurt from that. And when Mook let him off the hook, I don't know if Mook was afraid. I thought he let him off the hook too, but I could also understand him being afraid of that right hand because O'Brien has laid people out with that right hand. So maybe he was cautious, but I felt like he let him off the hook. He could have gotten the finish there. That being said, O'Brien battled his way back to a decision. But, I think that big left hand, that compromised him, man. That was for me. It
compromised him going all the way into the second round. The second round, he was still working at it. He worked it off eventually in the second round, but it cost him in the second round because he was still hurt by it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great fight and great performance for Mook, a guy who'd been out the ring for a year. And again, we love both of these guys, so we look forward to continuing to develop these guys. Both of them are very talented. I want to say Chris had won 3 fights in a row with us prior to this one. So, a lot of talent on his side. Look forward to having him. And, of course, Mook looking great as usual. And his brother, another Street Beefs alumni, Isaac McCary in here. He says, just got to my lunch break. Perfect timing. Mook went off. By the way, guys, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel. It'll help us continue to grow the channel. Also, be sure to join the channel. It's just $9.99 a month. That's the only way you get to watch the Fighters Rep events live if you don't buy a ticket. It also helps us continue to grow this channel. Next up, we had Isaac Delapaz, Gary, coming back from a war against Jason Gator Granado to take on Isaac McCary out of Syndicate all the way out in Las Vegas. Shout out to him for coming out and taking the fight, even though, as I indicated before, Delapaz was a bit overweight. But, man, Gary, Delapaz looked like, to me, that fight against Granado has leveled him up significantly. And that, for me as a promoter, that's music to my ears and art to my eyes. I like to see that. I like to see guys get better. And I think the same will happen for McCary, who got to fight Isaac and get this valuable experience and, see what it's like to come out from Vegas and take on these guys from Southern California that are some of the best in the division. Great fight. McCary was a warrior, but I just felt like Isaac Delapaz was one step ahead the entire time. What are your thoughts, Gary?
Yeah, Delapaz, he was he looked really sharp. Really, really good defense. I mean, I thought the last time before he fought Gator, I remember I told you I thought he had good defense. It's
that's
like
he got the fight. That's why I made the fight. That's one of the reasons I made the fight, because Granado's all offense and Delapaz is very defensively sound. And I thought it would be a great fight, and it ended up being Granado's toughest fight.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was gonna say he lost the Gator, but he gave a good fight in there. And he looked very sharp, like he was waiting to get back in the ring and get back a W. But he looked sharp. Defense was on point. It was hard to hit. McCary, he was trying, but it just seemed like it was Delapaz's day, because he was on. I mean, I was really impressed by him in that fight. He controlled everything. He controlled, the distance. He used his length at times. He's just fast, sharp punches, no looping punches, nothing wild, good kicks. I mean, it was just he put on a great performance. And and like I said, there's no shame to McCary for losing to him in that kind of fight. He's one of the better fighters that I've seen, and he's one of the better ones. And so, like you said, it's just a learning experience. He levels up, and now he knows what level he has to reach, just like Delapaz had to learn with Gator. It's like, okay, his levels is, and I know where I need to get better at. So that's what I thought about it. But it was a good fight by him.
Yeah. No, entertaining fight for sure. And I do think Delapaz was just, firing on all cylinders, even though he missed weight, which I wasn't happy about. But shout
out to McCary for still taking the fight.
Yeah, shout out to McCary. He's a warrior, man. That guy's McCary is a real one. I mean, he's the way he talks. If you deal with him the way I do, man, this kid just wants to fight. He's just like, I don't care. I'm here to bang.
Yeah.
It was. If I'm being honest, it was more me than him saying, well, let's keep his weight down. Let's try to make it as fair as possible. Because McCary was just like, fuck this, man. I just want to fight. I came out here to bang, So shout out to him. But shout out to him. And, I just think he's going to get better. He's got a very good record as well. And I think he'll learn and get better from this one. Next up, Denis Kovalev taking on Cameron Farad at 172 pounds. Kovalev is a guy who's just a real dog. We haven't had him in the Lions Den, though, in a couple years. And I figured he was going to have to be shaking off some ring rust. He took on Cameron Farad out of Pugilist Gym, which is Thor Skanky's gym, a gym that I love. Shout out to him. Shout out to Coach Rage as well. And this is a jiu-jitsu guy, Gary. This is a jiu-jitsu guy who took on Denis Kovalev, who is a banger. He's always been a banger at FightersRep. Very strong kid from Russia, representing Russia Muay Thai Team Dragon. And Cameron Farad out of Pugilist, man, just I just thought he clearly won this fight. He used his length. He had really bad intentions on everything he threw. And he really impressed me for a guy who's had like 6 MMA fights but no kickboxing fights. I felt like he was very impressive, Gary. So this is a guy I think we need to keep an eye on at 172 pounds. Cameron Farad, man, he looked great. And also, I'm going to need one of those Pugilist Gym Christmas sweaters, guys. So you guys got to send me one. I'm going to send you guys my address. I'm going to need a Christmas sweater. Up next, and I know, Gary, you didn't get to catch a lot of these, but it was a heavyweight fight. And this one I was really excited about, between Edgar Barbary, a guy who's one of the best heavyweights in all of California, albeit he's undersized. He's 5'9", but he's got hands. He's got hands for days. Versus Anthony, the Samoan Thor Taufi, who's had he had 5 MMA fights, but I don't think he'd had a real kickboxing bout, before this. But they wanted to fight Coach Anthony Eisenhower out of Brood 9, a gym I've actually gone to and trained with and worked with before. Wanted to fight, and if he wants to fight, I'm going to give him the fight because I trust him as a coach. He understands what his guys are capable of. It was a great fight in the first round. I felt like it was measured. I felt like Barbary's boxing was kind of coming through. But then Taufi did what a lot of these guys at Brood 9 do. A lot of these guys coached by Anthony Eisenhower do, is he just started putting his pace on him, Garrett. And he's the taller guy, 6'2", bigger guy, and he was just putting a pace on Barbary, Garrett. And he just wouldn't stop coming. And I was like, my goodness, this guy has cardio like a middleweight, So he kind of, I think that flustered Barbary a little bit. He's used to going at a slower pace as a heavyweight, maybe picking his shots. He wasn't letting him pick his shots. I feel like if you get into a fight with Barbary where you picking your shots, he's going to snipe you out of there. But Taufi was just throwing everything at him. And I believe it was in the second round. He kept the pace going. He threw a big left high kick that looked like it really hurt Barbary. Barbary did a good job of hiding it well, but you could tell he was hurt as he was backing up into the ropes. Yeah. And Taufi came in, landed a few more shots, and the referee decided to stop the fight. Barbary is still one of the best heavyweights in the state, but that means Taufi is also now one of the best heavyweights in the state, and the only guy that we've had that's still an amateur that beat Edgar Barbary is the champ, Amal Rassouli. So I'd love to see that fight happen at some point in the future. And you missed the heavyweight action, Gary. That's what happened here.
I know. I'm going to catch up with it, though, later.
Next up, we have Ruben Avila out of Uprise MMA, coached by, former Strikeforce champion Tariq Safieddine. He took on Aram Artuna out of Paradox Fight Gym, who took this fight late notice because another fight for him had dropped out in Vegas. So shout out to him. He's kind of a training partner with Isaac McCary. These guys are just down to fight, anyone. Great fight, very technical fight. But I felt like Avila, again, just a step ahead. Very, very technical. Young guy, still hasn't grown into his man strength, right? You could tell he was just kind of, peppering Artuna, not really hurting him too bad. Young guy still, but very skilled, very fast, and looked very good. And, obviously I would love to have either of these guys back in the Lions then. Fight number 10, Gary, was our middleweight title bout versus Sebastian Aguilar versus I'm just going to call him Vardanian because I can't say that word. I think it's Michael.
Wow, man, you can't say. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna try Mikrotich. I don't know, but it was Vardanian versus Aguilar, basically. And Aguilar is a guy everybody on the scene knows him. He was like 13-0, 14-0 as a fighter. He'd last fought for us years ago when he was still very green. But now he's probably the best middleweight in all of, maybe if not just California, in the entire United States. I mean, we're talking about a guy who at this point is like 14-0, 15-0. He took on Vardanian, who's a Russian fighter, and who had a ton of experience. And the first round, Aguilar is a complete, Muay Thai kickboxer and Muay Thai fighter. And he was using all his tools. Vardanian was more heavily relying on his boxing, and he was getting the best of Aguilar in that first round. Gary, he had bloodied him up. I mean, Aguilar's whole face, like from his nose here, was all blood. And I was like, man, are we going to see this guy take his first L in the Lions Den? But then he started to settle in second round. And then in the third round, he just took over. I think the leg kicks were just absolutely vicious, Gary. He was destroying Vardanian's legs. And and I think it was between the third and the fourth round, after getting his legs kicked in so much, he just wouldn't even get out. He didn't even get off the stool. He quit on the stool.
Oh, wow.
He was saying afterwards he was feeling dizzy. He had to get transported in an ambulance. They were saying he may have been in shock. I mean, this fight was no joke. Yeah, Gary, this fight was no joke. I mean, these guys,
that's crazy.
Yeah, these guys were going for the kill. So, we hope he's okay. I followed up with his coach, tells me he's all right. He was released from the hospital. But, man, congrats to Sebastian Aguilar becoming the new FightersRep middleweight title and just being an absolute killer, man. I mean, imagine you send someone into shock, kicking their legs. It was just – that guy's just built different. I don't know. That's all I really got to say about that one. Up next, we had for the super middleweight title was Joseph Parker out of House of Champions defending his title against the surging Dylan Ludwig out of, Ray Desire division and also Pugilist Gym. And Joseph Parker, man, able to defend his title, able to slow down the menacing hype train of Dylan Ludwig once and for all. Well, not once and for all, just for this fight, because I'm sure he's going to continue. Because he did put up a really solid fight, but Joseph Parker got the stoppage here, Gary. Really used his height here. I mean, there was a significant height difference here, 5 inches. Parker was able to really utilize his height. Every time Ludwig got close, they were just swinging. They would tangle up. It kind of reminded me of a Klitschko-type strategy, but, not every time, because Parker was in there swinging, too, trying to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And just very aggressive was Parker. Very smart in the way he used his length. Just a very, very sound fighter. And now defended his super middleweight title against a guy in Ludwig who beat Khosrav Sadarov, who is the only guy, I believe, to beat Parker in the past. So, it shows you how the fight math never works out.
Yeah.
But anyway, it sounds like Ludwig, Ludwig is only 5'10". He might continue to drop in weight. This fight was at 172 pounds, so he might continue to drop in weight, go down to 165 perhaps. But, man, Joseph Parker is the king of that super middleweight division, and it's going to take a special talent to get him out of there. Next up, Gary, we had David Marquez, the death dealer, taking on Mariano Hernandez Corona, who came down from Fresno, California. These guys didn't like each other, Gary. I don't know if you remember this one.
Yeah, what are you telling me?
Corona didn't like Marquez because he said he's too happy during the weigh-in while he's miserable. And it was just the most petty thing. But, it worked at least in favor of Marquez and pissing him off enough to Gary put on the best performance of his career, if you ask me. I mean, I've never seen David Marquez look this sharp. It only lasted 1 round. Basically, they were leg kicking each other. Corona caught Marquez's leg kick, and as he tried to counter him while holding his leg, before he could get the counter off, Gary, Marquez had cracked him with a right hook and dropped him. And Corona's body just would not respond after that. I mean, he got back up valiantly. Shout out to him. Very brave, very courageous. But after that, Marquez just went in for the kill. And Marquez, Gary, is a killer. He's a showman. He's exciting. He got on the mic after. Bro, when I tell you I was cracking up afterward, laughing, because after he won the fight, he started barking at everybody in the audience. He got to the ropes and was walking along the ropes. And it was along the ropes where I was sitting barking at people like Yoel Romero. Bro, I could not hold it in, Gary. This dude was just too much. Got on the mic, said, was asked about the bad blood, said the only blood we need to talk about is his blood that was left right in this ring. I mean, this kid may be the most marketable, most exciting kid, in the entire community. So shout out to him. Congrats to Death Dealer Marquez. Congrats to Coach Chanarith Pot. Congrats to BP Martial Arts Academy. Congrats to the Beehive, Joshua Fochman, and of course Stephanie out there at BP. This guy becomes a champion for the first time at FightersRep. It's his first title, and I really think this kid, Gary's a special talent, man. I think this kid will go as far as he wants to go in this sport. I'll also say Corona is a beast, man. He just got caught. That's what happens in this sport. This is the most brutal combat sport, man, because there's no holding, there's no stalling, there's no grappling. If you get caught, you got to kind of fight your way. You got to kind of fight your way out of it, Gary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, when guys get caught in the lines, then it's kind of a wrap. And, and that brings us, to our next fight, the light middleweight title that was on the line between Claycomb and Milshawn Lathan. And, yeah, we definitely didn't expect this result either, but it was the same result. First round finish. Milshawn Lathan coming out like a bat out of hell, Gary. Landing a right hand, dropping Claycomb. Claycomb bounces right back up. They go at it again. Bang, connects again with the straight right hand down the pipe, and the referee had seen enough. He got knocked down twice in a matter of maybe 15 to 20 seconds, and the fight was over, and we have a new light middleweight champion representing for Huntington Beach Fight Club in Milshawn Lathan, who from the very beginning of his career, man, he's 4-0 now. From the very beginning of his career, I thought this kid was a special talent. I will say I did not expect this result. I thought this fight would be a very close fight. I thought all these fights were 50-50 fights walking into this fight. You felt based on watching them fight, you felt Milshawn Lathan had the advantage. But I told you Milshawn had been out since April with abdomen surgery, and he hadn't been active as Claycomb. I wasn't sure what was going to happen here, but you called it, man. Lathan with just explosive action in the Lions Den, and really.
I wanted to see if Michael had switched up some things to his game, added some things to his game from the loss and everything. So I wanted to see but I knew watching watching that I'm like, I knew it was gonna be the right. I just knew it was gonna be that straight right coming down the pipe. I knew it, and I don't know. I just felt it. Not saying that Claycomb isn't a good fighter or anything like that. He's a good fighter and everything. It's just sometimes styles makes fights, and it's just looking at it from afar, looking at both of them fight and watching it. I just felt like it was a bad matchup for him.
Yeah. And that right hand was from Milshawn was, my goodness. He was throwing a fastball with that right hand, man. That thing was serious. And look, shout out to Michael Claycomb, man. I mean, he's won a Muay Thai championship, and I'm sure he's going to be back. This is the amateur game. And again, this rule set is brutal. One hit can finish you off, Yep. So shout out to him. We look forward to having him back. I know he'll be back better and stronger than ever. But Milshawn Lathan is your light middleweight champion, and a guy I'm very excited to continue to promote as well. And that brings us to, Gary, our main event of the evening, or the FightersRep light cruiserweight title. That's 185 pounds under the IKF's sanctioning, was on the line. And it was Cameron Spencer, who I think you've seen in the past, Gary. He, you know, it's been difficult to find him a fight because he was 7-2, you know, so very experienced, 185 pounder, not that many big guys, you know, that cut down 185 with that much experience. But we were able to find him another guy, excuse me, all the way out in Miami, Florida. Let's see here. We lost Gary.
Yeah,
there you go. So another guy all the way out in Miami, Florida, who people also didn't really want to fight, in Joseph Grant, who was, you know, something like 6-1. So this was a very good fight. I felt like these are both very technical guys. I felt like Cameron, you know, he did have the height advantage, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen here because, you know, Joe looked really technical to me in the video that I'd seen. So what I'll say is, you know, this ended up being a 5-round war. This ended up being a fight where Cameron Spencer, you know, told me afterwards, that's the toughest guy I've ever fought, talking about Joe Grant. And Joe Grant represented well, man, represented well for Miami. You know, he flew out the night before he landed in California. And, you know, when they were fighting at like 10 p.m., it's like 1 a.m. in Miami. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he didn't really get a chance to acclimate. But no excuses, man. What I'll say is, you know, Cameron was just a step ahead in this fight. Maybe Grant, you know, on a couple judges' cards, won one of the rounds. But I think the fight was closer than what the judges' scorecards indicate. That being said, I felt like Spencer's boxing was the best I've ever seen it. I mean, this is a guy who, you know, for me, went from, you know, if you were to rate him, maybe a 6 in boxing or a 5 to an 8 or a 9 between his last fight and this fight. When we're talking about boxing for kickboxing, you know what I mean? He was attacking the body. He was throwing all kinds of different combinations, Gary. He was using his jab. He was parrying. He had better defense than I'd seen him in the past. And I think that little bit more of experience that he had over Joe Grant helped him really in this fight. And I think his development, shout out to Hardworks fitness coach Hung Nivo, his development between the last fight and this fight has been exponential. But again, Gary, this was an incredible fight. It was such a vibe to see a guy represented from Miami, a guy representing for Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to be able to put something like that together was something I was very proud of, man. Very proud of. And that was the main event. We had 3 other fights on the post limbs. You know, we had Ramsey Glover get the win over a tough David Rincon. Shout out to him, another great product out of Rounders Fullerton. We had Nate Brown, also out of Hardworks, TKO his opponent in George Tuayev. Shout out to Nate Brown, also coached by Coach Hung. I think we're going to see a lot more of him. And then we had Alexis Franco and Cesar Navarro have a great fight with Navarro coming out on top. So congrats to all of these young men and women that competed on this card, man. It was just a fantastic card, Gary. And you know, I'm looking forward now. I'm looking forward now to Miami. What we're gonna do here in Miami.
Right, man?
It did, man. It did. I'm looking forward to Miami, probably February 17th, and then California again on March 2nd, Gary. I mean, we gotta give these kids work, man. We gotta put these kids to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're hitting me up. They want to fight. They're hungry. Everybody's like, yo, like, how do I get on? How do I get on? How do I get on? Like, it's the most
good though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the most excitement. It's the most encouragement, motivation I've seen from any fighters rep, really. You know what I mean? And it's strange. It's strange because even though we had a good turnout, you know, during the holiday seasons, you don't have a good turnout, you know, so relative to turnouts, you know, at another time of the year, you know, it wasn't as strong. And plus the economy and inflation, everything else has really affected people's ability to buy tickets. We still had a strong turnout, but maybe somehow, you know, that caused or sparked interest. Maybe there was that FOMO, you know, that fear of missing out for the people that maybe couldn't make it that wanted to. And all these guys are just like, man, we want to fight, we want to fight, we want to fight. And so I'm really excited about that, man. I'm really excited to get things going. Anyway, I've talked a lot, man. You gotta tell me what you think. I've talked a lot. You got to do a little bit of talking now, man. I'm tired.
Nah, man, I'm excited. Real talk, I'm excited to come and watch one of them live down here in Miami. I mean, I mean, a lot of them are really exciting fights. And the thing about it is, it's not like really long, overly fights. You get good action. You get it in you know, you get 3-minute rounds, or you get them to go out and you get to see a lot of fights, a lot of action. So I'm excited to go see it.
They're 2 minutes, so the guys really
2 minutes. Yeah, you're right.
It's a sprint.
You're right. 2 minutes. Yeah. So I'm excited to see it and everything, man. And from the fights I watch, I'm gonna go watch the rest of them that I missed, because I didn't get a chance to watch the rest of them yet. But from the fights I watch, I enjoy myself. So, you know, I know it's probably even crazier live.
It really is, man. It really is. But anyway, Gary, man, I appreciate your time. You know, knuckleheads, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, join the channel to help us build. Get your Fighters Rep merch in the link below to continue to help us build. Any super chats you drop or super thanks, if you put a fighter's name along with them, you know, it'll highlight your comment, and we'll also split the profit with that fighter. And we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Me and Gary are going to be dropping a lot more content on you guys and get you guys ready for these next Fighters Rep cards. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Really appreciate your time, Gary, man. Thank you, bro.
No problem, man. I'll let you later.
All right, man.